Over a fortnight since its launch, the state of the Oblivion Remaster's performance on console is still a disappointment. The dust has settled on an ambitious, visually striking Unreal Engine 5 overhaul, which is also faithfully running the original Bethesda logic behind the scenes. It's an enticing, if unorthodox approach to a remaster, except having now had time to thoroughly test the PlayStation 5 and PS5 Pro versions, its problems on console in general have become more apparent. No platform is spared of issues here, whether it's PS5, PS5 Pro, or either Xbox Series machine, all struggle with traversal hitches while roaming the open world. Secondly, there's major sub-60fps frame rates, where I've also discovered that performance slowly degrades with more playing time. More on that a bit later. And finally, software crashes are the icing on the cake here, with all PlayStation and Xbox platforms crashing to the system menu on loading a save one too many times. It's a dire position for any remaster to be in, and clearly, developer Virtuous needs to address the game's stability, the crashes, as a priority. Equally bizarre is the sense that this remaster has somehow been rushed out without ironing out these issues first, and despite it being a 19-year-old game with no urgent release deadline. Put another way, we could easily have had this Oblivion remaster turn up in 2026 or later, and nobody would have been the wiser. Also, it's worth noting that there is still no equivalent hotfix update in place on PS5 or PS5 Pro here to match Series X's version 233550. After giving it some time to appear for our follow-up coverage, it's seemingly not forthcoming, and so it seemed better that we present the facts as they stand today, with both PS5 machines running on the earlier version 233194. In the end though, the hotfix has less of a bearing on the results than expected, as I'll get to. First off, let's address the PS5 Pro upgrade situation. The PlayStation Store suggests that a Pro upgrade is in place, and on close inspection, we get a resolution boost here over base PS5 and Series X. It's very much a straightforward bump in pixels pushed by the Pro GPU on both graphics modes though, performance and quality, and fundamentally there are no other visual changes. To start with the 60fps performance mode, base PS5 and Series X share the same 1440p resolution target at peak, with PS5 often operating at 900p in practice, and Series X typically running at a higher 990p value in matching areas. In this case, PS5 Pro gives us a boost to a higher 1620p target, notably in the inventory screen or simpler dungeons, with drops to 1188p lowest based on my testing. Again, all textures, shadows, world draw, and the quality of the game's Lumen GI and reflections are identical. Switching over to the 30fps quality mode, it's the same story, but with Sony's enhanced console hitting a further resolution boost. Base PS5 and Series X render at a matching 1620p in the absolute best case, with drops to 1296p at the lower end of the DRS scale. PS5 Pro meanwhile bumps that up to practically a native 4K target, or 3484 by 2016 in my tests on the inventory screen, which is close enough to suggest a native 4K is theoretically the goal here. In practice, of course, in regular gameplay, PS5 Pro is more typically running at numbers like 1584p or 1620p during open world roaming, which is still a sizable image quality boost over base PS5 and Series X. Performance testing is where we face the game's most glaring problems. Before we kick off, it's worth stressing that console frame rates are affected by many factors, like the variable weather, dynamic time of day, NPC and enemy positions, and so on, all of which are out of our control for exact tests. Surprisingly, and on top of that, 60fps performance also degrades with continuous playtime on PS5 and Xbox. For example, a completely fresh boot of the game, that is, closing the software, reopening it, and loading a save for the first time, will give you an often significantly higher frame rate when compared to a playthrough that's been running for 15 minutes or more. Traveling between areas or cycling through multiple save states is an easy way to overload the engine and tank performance. This is true of all console platforms, where matching routes through the world can run at up to 20 frames per second better on PS5 Pro at points using the fresh boot. Likewise, Xbox Series X and base PS5 have the exact same behaviour, with a freshly booted save giving consistently higher readings compared to a charged playthrough, with more continuous playtime behind it. Curiously, cycling through saves also introduces bugs in the charged playthrough, and so the Lumen GI setting appears to change, resulting in thicker shading across the scene at times, which may well explain the performance difference here. And secondly, you may have noticed, it also leads to the camera position being too high while riding on horseback, where both of these issues are very fixable by simply resetting the game. All of this does suggest a memory management issue. On hindsight, a correction is due then for my previous console coverage, where I concluded that the hotfix improved Series X's 60 FPS performance. On retesting though, it's become clear that the hotfix run only actually benefited from what we've just seen, a fresh boot up of a ready-made save, while the previous test had more continuous playtime behind it. Ultimately, the issue of poor frame rates remains with or without the latest hotfix update on PS5 or Series X, and your continuous playtime is the bigger factor in how the game performs. Supporting the theory that this is a memory management issue or a memory leak is that all consoles crash after a while. After booting the exact same sequence of save points in a row, PS5 and PS5 Pro always freeze at a matching point, taking you to the console front end. On Xbox, we have the exact same issue after loading a save, where it bluntly ends the process and takes us to the Xbox menu. Tellingly, reloading that problem save point will suddenly work after a fresh boot up. In summary then, crashes may not affect everybody, but this does suggest that time and engagement with the game increases the likelihood of it happening. Looking at overall performance at 60 FPS, the fairest approach for comparative testing on PS5, PS5 Pro and Series X is to limit the variables, and therefore use a freshly booted save for every test run. It's a more reliable way to get a ground truth of relative performance. First up, the reality is, as far as traversal hitching goes, it really doesn't matter which platform you run on. Each has equally sizable stutters at the exact same points in the world, spiking the frame time to 100 milliseconds or even higher. It's especially disappointing for PS5 Pro. The Pro hardware may be operating with the same CPU limit as base PS5, and so it follows that streaming terrain faces a similar bottleneck, and even if PS5 Pro's optional 10% CPU clock boost were in place, the results would still be broadly similar. It's a shame, but this is a constant issue while in the open world, though smaller dungeon areas are less susceptible to hitches. The second point here relates to general frame rate readings. Taking long galloping routes towards the Citadel, a real performance winner here is hard to pin down. But the point is that all run at between 35 to 60 FPS. Each console has its moment in the lead, depending on the portion of the test run, which again points to out of control engine variables having an impact. That being said, I did notice that base PS5 does turn up with the typically lowest reading, with an average frame rate of 50 FPS across the breadth of the run, while Series X and PS5 Pro average at a similar 55 FPS. It's hardly what I'd call a victory, as all suffer from major drops to 40 FPS and under, with sizable hitches en route as well. What's clear is that PS5 Pro owners do not get a game-changing performance boost at 60 FPS, and even VRR displays will struggle to mask those hitches. Fundamentally, it's fraught with the same issues, where its resolution increase is the main enhancement to look out for. The Oblivion Remaster's graphics options menu on console offers a few alternatives. Switching to the 30 FPS quality mode, the game runs as expected with a 30 FPS cap on PS5 and PS5 Pro, with less wavering to the main frame rate reading in most areas. Sadly, this cap does have frame pacing issues, adding judder to camera movement, which is a distraction, and we also have traversal hitches in the same spots as the performance mode. It's just like Series X and S, and makes it hard to recommend on either PlayStation console. A quick word on reflections here too, because as a curious extra, there's also an SSR toggle on all consoles. This SSR mode is enabled by default, and does not affect performance to any major extent in our stress tests, given that most drops are caused by traversal streaming. It's a welcome option to have though, and SSR layers over the top of UE5's lumen reflections, using a screen space technique to draw a mirror image. All the usual drawbacks apply of course, with disocclusion artifacts appearing on water bodies if, say, a weapon overlaps the screen space. Toggling SSR off altogether will simply leave behind the lumen reflection, where the downside of the pure lumen method is that it's rather selective in what it draws. Your proximity to an object is a factor in whether a reflection appears there, and you'll also see pop-in as the appropriate geometry enters the BVH. It's a distraction that SSR does help to disguise, and even though it brings its own issues, it's recommended to keep SSR enabled. Returning to the Oblivion Remaster for a second round of console testing brings a great many issues to light. This isn't a PS5 versus Xbox issue. All are affected by hitching, crashes, bugs, major sub 60 FPS drops, and an uneven 30 FPS line on quality mode. The chance to revisit the game with a focus on PS5 consoles only highlights the scale of its issues across a breadth of platforms and how urgently we need a proper patch to solve it. There's a lot going for the Oblivion Remaster as a celebration of an RPG classic, giving fans old and new alike a way to enjoy an iconic entry in the Elder Scrolls line. But it simply is not being done justice when so much technical baggage gets in the way of the experience, and so here's hoping a patch update is imminent. But that's all from me today. If you did enjoy this video, feel free to like or subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell for instant notifications as any new video lands. To get to this video and many more, check out our Patreon at digitalfoundry.net, and to get in touch directly, you know where to find me. But from me for now, thanks for watching.